Hi friends, today we are talking about episode 4 of Love on the Spectrum US, so please stick around. Hi friends, my name is Claire and this is my channel, Woodshed Theory. Here, I make content about what it is like to live as an adult on the autism spectrum and whatever else feels good to me. So if that sounds good to you, or if you're feeling particularly gracious today, and I hope that you are, please go ahead and click the subscribe button, ring the bell. I almost forgot to mention that I put out videos three times a week. Click the like, click the like. Thank you to everyone who has newly subscribed. I really appreciate it. We're almost at 2,000. Can you believe it? I can. All right, I'm gonna jump right back into it because if I've learned anything, it's that it takes me so long to talk about an entire episode of Love on the Spectrum. I made a fresh cup of coffee, so here we go. All right, this episode picks up where we left off with Dani calling Solomon to let him know that she doesn't see a dating future with him and she just wants to be friends. I could go on and on about this. It was hard to watch. Solomon obviously doesn't respond well. I think it was a mix of, it was his first kiss and he thought that it was going super well. And he feels, and he tells her that he feels that she led him on. And he does get emotional and cry a bit about it with her on the phone. This is such a hard thing to talk about. As an autistic person watching Dani in this experience, I felt like I understood her and where she was coming from better, but I also understood Solomon's side to things as well. Dani was pretty short with him, which in a way I thought was good because she was just like cutting off any romantic future and she only wanted to be friends. So that was a good thing that she was making it very clear. I felt bad for Solomon because I could see how people think that she was leading him on, in that she was telling him that she was in love with him, she was open to the kissing and was returning the flirtation and talking about being in love throughout their dates. And I can see how that would send mixed messages. So I can only hope that this was a learning experience for Dani, to maybe take things a little bit slower in the future, because you really can affect someone very quickly with how you treat them. And obviously Solomon had become quickly attached. And yeah, I know that after she got off the phone with Solomon, Dani was a little bit upset. She understands that she hurt him and that makes her upset, and she does cry a little bit. But then when she's talking to her family, well, first she says she needs to get back to work, and then she talks to her family and then about how he didn't take it well, and she mentions businesswomen don't cry. I don't necessarily... I think it might appear that way, but I don't necessarily agree with that because it's okay to have emotions. I know that she was just dealing with it in her own way. Yeah, it's a difficult situation. I don't think that she was trying to be disingenuous or to lead Solomon on or hurt him. I think she was handling things how they felt right in the moment. But that doesn't mean that Solomon's feelings are invalid or don't matter. And I think that she understands that. So I'm interested to see what happens moving forward, if she'll go on any more dates in the series, because I do like Dani and I'd love to see some growth from her. Yeah, it's just, again, it's hard to talk about because I think she's a nice person and so is Solomon. And I think that it's so easy as someone on the spectrum to like jump in head first and to have expectations. And I've been there. I have been in these situations before. And they're they're hard. They're hard to remember. And I don't think either person was trying to do anything on purpose or hurt each other. So if you were a neurotypical person watching this, I could see how you would look at it and not understand Danny's behavior, or understand how Solomon got attached so quickly. I don't know what else to say other than I have been here. And these situations, they really suck. And it's hard when you have to learn something through experience. Then we get back to our date with Rachel and Sabode, and it was so sweet and so wonderful. I think they both had a great time. I mean, I'm not here to critique anyone, but I think they had a great date. They talked about animals and dancing, their love for the beach. They both did an amazing job with conversation. And you could tell that they were both a little bit nervous, and they knew that there was an expectation for conversation, and they were both really trying hard to keep the conversation up. They both did a great job, and I think, as I mentioned before, blind dates? First date ever, and it's a blind date and you're being filmed? Whew, that's hard. And then you're like, act natural. Sabode excuses himself, and he lets the producers know that he's having a great time. Rachel says she's having a great time off camera as well. Sabode pays the bill, and she's so grateful for that. I thought that was really sweet. He then asks her what her dreams are, and they start planning the next date. They end the date with a high five. I thought that was really sweet. In general, you could tell that they both like each other. Sabode said that the date was super cool. He thinks it was successful and that he was really happy, and Rachel feels the same way. And it is just such a sweet thing to watch. Something that they've both been really wanting to do for a while is to find someone to date, and it seemed like, at least from the first date, that things are going well. So I'm glad that they're going to go on another date. He meets up with his family at the end of the date, and they discuss the date and how well it went, and everyone is just excited for him, and you can tell he's excited too. He even makes a joke that he's going to update his Facebook profile to married because he likes Rachel so much. So I'm really excited to see where that leads, and happy for him. Next person that we bump into is Abby, and she is going back out on a date with David. They do ask Abby what she thinks it means to be in love, and she says to be treated like a princess and taken out for ice cream and dinner. Touche, Abby. So she gets ready to go out for her date with David, and she meets him at one of David's favorite places, which is Lions, Tigers, Bears. Lions, Tigers, and Bears, which is kind of a wilderness experience that you could go to in California. I have never heard of it, but it looks cool. He gives her another gift, which just shows me how thoughtful that this young man is. It is a small elephant and also a hat. I think that goes along with the Lions and Tigers and Bears experience. But he says he gives her the elephant because, like an elephant, you will remember this moment forever. How sweet is that? David. I mean, come on. If only everyone could be so considerate and wonderful. So, yeah. Wonderful way to treat Abby. Good job. I was so impressed with how David treated Abby on this date. He kept saying things like, I got you. You could tell she was nervous about meeting the lions and tigers and bears or whatever, and feeding them. I would have been nervous too. But she had his support, and he was saying things like, I got you. He showed her how to be brave, fed the lions first. And you could tell that even though she was nervous, him being there and guiding her through it was really helping her. And I thought that was great. Something I did notice about Abby is that when she got nervous, she started talking about birds because they're a special interest of hers. And I just thought that really illustrated how she was trying to regulate how nervous and anxious she was feeling by talking about something that was interesting to her and taking her mind off of it. So I thought that gave us some insight into how autistics function. I do the same thing. you can tell that David really likes Abby, and they both express that they really like animals and that they have that in common. So yeah, the date seems to be going really well. The next time we see them, they are having a beautiful picnic together and eating some popcorn. I actually thought that this conversation was very sweet and insightful. Abby mentions that they should go on a cruise sometime with water slides, and this is the first time that she mentions to David that she has a brother, and her brother has a girlfriend, and they're both neurotypical. Then she mentioned that herself and David have autism, and I thought that that was a really interesting way to bring it up, but I thought she did a good job finally broaching the conversation, because it's not like autistic people don't know that they are different, right? Like, we know that we see the world differently than other people. What I liked about this was Abby mentions that she had written a song that she has on YouTube, which I haven't watched yet, but I will, called The Girl Inside. And she asks David, or says, David, you should watch it. I like this. She mentioned that she feels like she is trapped inside of a body, like a girl trapped inside of a body. And this is an excellent illustration of how autistic people relate to one another. She's done something creative and artistic in a way where she feels like she has communicated her feelings, and she, instead of rehashing all of that and trying to make herself, make sense and get anxious or excited about it, she just says, hey, David, you should watch this video. It explains a lot about me. I think that that's really helpful when you have autism, or when you are autistic, however you want to say it. The other thing I really related to is, yeah, it does feel, when you are on the spectrum, it feels like you are a person sitting inside your head and watching things unfold in front of you. It's hard to explain. So I was happy that she brought up the analogy of being a different person inside than how you are on the outside. And I really appreciated that about Abby, so I can't wait to go check out her video, because I'm sure it's amazing. I'll try and find it and link it down below. I just really like Abby. I think she's honest. She is straightforward. She seems like she's really talented. So yeah, I can't wait to watch that video. Then they move on and talk about the movie Soul, which I thought was pretty interesting, because I know that David likes movies, and I thought it was sweet of Abby to continue her point of conversation, but bring it into a topic that David was interested in. I thought that that was very considerate and made a lot of sense. So, way to go, Abby. The movie Soul, which I haven't seen, they're talking about how different souls switch different bodies, and that's similar to how she feels as an adult on the spectrum. So I really liked that. The date went super well. It ends with kisses on the cheek, and they plan to see each other again. So I'm team David and Abby all the way. I hope that things work out between them, at least that they become super good friends. I know she wants to go on a few more dates with them, and they seem like they're enjoying each other's company, so I'm happy about it. Then we catch up with Steven, who's quickly becoming my favorite person on this show. He starts talking about how he always knew that he was different from other people, and at least he knew that his intentions were always good. And I really felt that this resonated with me as a fellow autistic person. I was also diagnosed later in life, in my 30s, and I always felt different, but good intentioned. And I really appreciated that that's how he put that. So thank you, Steven. Then they bring in his life coach, Elaine, who he's been meeting with. And similar to his assistant that he's had for 2 years, he's had Elaine as a life coach more recently. And I want to know, Steven, are all of these changes because you found out that you were on the spectrum? Is that why you're getting this support now? I need to talk to Steven, because I think it's interesting to hear from people who are diagnosed later in life and see what kind of support might be available to them. I think that that's wonderful. And I think that him being on this show and showing people the new support he's getting even later in life is really going to help a lot of people. So Steven's my favorite so far. I liked Elaine, the life coach. I don't believe that she is neurodiverse, but she did focus on the fact that she understood that he didn't understand that he was neurodiverse before a few years ago. And she talked about getting over the internalized guilt and shame that he might feel about that had been laid on him over the years from people because he was different. So I really appreciated that about Elaine. Man, so much happens in these episodes, and I feel like I can't get to it all. He goes out to have coffee with his friend Stan, his best friend Stan, and when he sees Stan, he says, "Stan, see meeting you here." Funniest joke I've heard in a long time, so good one. So Stan and Steven talk about how Steven's nervous for the date he's gonna go on, and Stan asks Steven what is he looking for in a future date, and also Stan mentions that Steve introduced him to his wife, so he knows that he's a good matchmaker, which I thought was pretty interesting because usually I feel like autistic people are good matchmakers because we see people for who they are and not as who they're trying to present to be, because we're very straightforward in that way. So I think we would be a good matchmaker. I thought Steven was so sweet. He said that his ideal woman would be a female version of Stan, which some might find strange, but I thought it was really sweet because he had been a longtime friend of Steve. He was very accepting and warm and loving, and he's looking for somebody like that in a mate. So I thought that was really sweet. Then we hear Steven talk about how he is afraid of being alone and what that might mean for him, and he'd really like to start a new journey with someone, which leads us to his first date with Candida. They go to a beautiful Japanese garden, which I'm assuming is in San Francisco, which now I want to go and find out where it is because I want to go there and have tea in that garden. So thanks for the date idea. Things are a little awkward between him and Candida, but he hasn't gone on a date in a while, and he's trying his best. He mentions to her that her name sounds like Candy, and she seems like she's turned off by that. Oh well, I go by Candida. So I feel like he recovers very well, and they move forward with the date okay. I just think Steve is so funny. He makes a few jokes that I thought were really funny and witty. I have a similar sense of humor, and it doesn't seem like Candida is picking up on them as fast as maybe someone who, loves a good pun, like myself. So they seem to be enjoying their tea, but I don't know if they're having a good date or not. They don't really get into much on the date. They just meet each other, start having tea, and that's about it. So I'm excited to see where this goes for Steve. Regardless of if it works out with Candida or not, I just think that he seems like a great person and could make somebody really happy. He seems like he would be a good partner for somebody, and he needs to find somebody who really appreciates that. He's so authentic and he has a great sense of humor. Next, we pick up with our friend James. James starts off by saying that when he was younger, it was more difficult for him to make friends, which I completely relate with. And then he speaks about how now that he is older, it has been easier for him to make friends. And I think a lot of this has to do with autism and special interests. Because as an autistic adult, you can find connections through other people who have similar special interests to you. And I think that is usually how we find friends and how we, build friendships from there. I loved that James meets up with some of his friends for lunch, and they discuss that they've recently been dating and what their dating life has been looking like. His friend talks about how he has been on several dates that went well, but he hasn't found his person yet, and encourages James not to give up. I like that in this series they're having people meet up, or the participants meet up with their neurodiverse friends as opposed to so many neurotypical people, because the show was meant to give you a view into dating and relationships of people on the spectrum. And in the Australian version, there was a lot of input from people who were not on the spectrum. So I really appreciated that about this show, is that they've been meeting up with their neurodiverse friends and talking about relationships with them. The next time we see James, he is getting ready for his date at the Renaissance Fair with Emma. And the only thing I'll say is that his parents are there again. And I guess it makes sense because he does live with his parents, but it does seem like they're very into his life. And that's not altogether bad, but I would encourage them. I don't know if they're going to watch this, and I'm sure that the producers of the show like asks them to be there, but they're very involved and very on James about his choices and what he likes, and James is going to be himself, and he should be himself if he's going to be going on dates. So if he wants to wear his hair a certain way, or dress a certain way, or do a certain thing, just let him do it. Let him be himself. You don't want him to like go have a date with Emma as a completely different person, masking who he is, and then she gets the wrong impression. So yeah, I would just encourage them to accept him for who he is. Let him do his own thing. It's okay to be concerned about him and want him to succeed and do well, but also let people do their own thing, be their own person. It's okay to want to be involved, but being involved doesn't always mean giving your opinion. Sometimes it can just mean being there and being encouraging. Hey, that's great, have a good time. And they do have some fun, like taking pictures of him in his outfit beforehand and having some fun with that. But sometimes I just feel like maybe they're pushing it a bit too far with the do this, not that. Have you thought about this? And it's just making him nervous to be himself. And that's not what dating is about. Then we see him show up at the Ren Fair about to meet Emma, and that's the last we see of him. So I can't wait to see what happens at the Ren Fair because, again, I've never been to one, and I'd love to go and dress up and do the whole thing. So I'm excited to see how their date goes and see if they're a match, they get to know each other better. So I'm excited for that. The final person that we get to see this episode is Kaelyn. I just have to say, Kaelyn is not getting a ton of screen time, and I'm kind of bummed about it because I relate most to Kaelyn. So Netflix, give me some more Kaelyn next time. I know we can't go back and fix it now, but I'm just saying, what can I say about her in this episode? She's doing some gardening with her friend. She talks about the hardest thing about being on the spectrum is the isolation from others. Especially because of communication differences. I could do a whole video on this. It is very isolating to be on the spectrum and know that you are communicating differently than other people, and having to constantly navigate that is very isolating. Especially when there's an expectation that you make all of the adjustments and that you accommodate them. You as a neurodiverse person accommodate a neurotypical person and not the other way around. It's hard. So I totally understand that, and I'm glad that she brought that up. She talks about Googling second date topics and memorizing those topics. I just thought that was funny because we like to be prepared, us ASD people. We want to know what we're getting into. We want to know what we're going to talk about and feel comfortable that way. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That's really everything that happened in the episode. I'm sure I missed stuff, guys. It's so much. It's so many pages of notes, and I can only talk for so long. I would love in the comments to hear what your thoughts were. What did you think about the different situations that we're seeing? Do you think we're seeing enough diversity in the show? How do you feel about how the families are involved? Is it to your liking? Are they too involved? What could they do better? How do you feel the matches are going? Lots to talk about in the next 2 episodes. I hope that you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!